Human rights lawyer Femi Falana has frowned at a proposed bill to make voting compulsory in Nigeria, declaring it unconstitutional and impractical under the current legal framework. Press reports that the bill, co-sponsored by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, and Labour Party lawmaker Daniel Asama Ago, sought to amend the Electoral Act to make voting mandatory for all Nigerians of voting age in national and state elections. The bill also proposes a 6-month jail term or fine of 100,000 naira for eligible citizens who fail to vote. At a plenary on Thursday, Ago, representing Basa Jos North, maintained that the bill aims to curb voter apathy and reduce vote buying. In the same vein, Deputy Speaker Benjamin Kalu supported the bill, citing Australia as a model where compulsory voting has reportedly enhanced civic responsibility. Our guest who is standing by virtually is a legal practitioner, Handsome Kinikanwo Esq. Thank you for joining us, Handsome.
Can you hear me?
Hi, thank you for joining us, sir. Right away, how practical is this particular bill suggesting that it is compulsory, mandatory for Nigerians to cast their vote during the electioneering period?
Well, as at today, as at now, the law has not been passed. It's not a law yet. And so when the law is passed, we'll know how practicable that is. But let us assume that the law has been passed. It is very, very difficult to enforce such a law. It is very, very difficult to enforce such a law. Because if I am of a voting age and I've not registered as a voter, it means that I am not qualified to vote. So until I'm registered, I'm not qualified to vote. So it is very, very impracticable to force people, adults, to vote. People like myself and a lot of other lawyers have chosen that if that law is eventually, the bill rather is eventually passed into law, and they are going to boycott it. Many of us are willing to pay the 100,000 naira fine or go to prison for not voting. The question that the lawmaker should be asking is, what is
you have for elections?
Pardon, I didn't get that.
You said that most people, and I'm sure you included yourself, would prefer to pay the 100,000 naira.
Yes, I said so.
I'm asking, is that how much apathy you have towards Nigerian elections?
The question is, why are Nigerians not interested in casting their votes? That should be the question they should be bothered with. Why are Nigerians not interested in voting? If you look at section 60 to section 64 of the Electoral Act 2022, it gives INEC the power to determine how to transmit results based on that sections of the Electoral Act. In the just concluded 2023 election, INEC decided, I think by Regulation 38, paragraph 1 of their regulation, that election results will be transmitted from the polling units directly to INEC portal. So all the results we are supposed to be transmitted from the various polling units to INEC portal. INEC made that regulation. INEC reassured Nigerians that they were going to ensure that results will be transmitted electronically. It is there in their regulations. What happened? In the middle of election, INEC told us that there are technical glitches. And so INEC did not, it's crazy. INEC did not observe their own regulation. What happens when the whole election petition started? The court sanctioned it. Nigerians are no longer comfortable. They don't have trust in our institutions. Whether INEC, whether the courts, many Nigerians are no longer comfortable with the system. That should be the problem that they should be confronting. How do I come out to vote? And at the end of the day, my vote means nothing. I'll use myself for example. In the just concluded 2023 election, I came out to vote. In my polling unit, a particular candidate won, and it was the same all over Rivers State. In fact, that is the Labour Party candidate, Peter Obi. He won almost all the polling units in Rivers State. Over 90% of the polling units, he won the elections. Those in Rivers State, if they are truthful to themselves, they will tell you that he won in Rivers State. It wasn't just in Rivers State, it was a replica in a lot of states in Nigeria, including Lagos State, the current president's state. What happened? Result changed overnight. Is that the kind of election you want people to be participating in? People come out to vote and they are beaten up, they are injured, their lives are at risk. So many persons died because of elections. So many persons were injured because of elections. In fact, a particular lady trended on social media.
Some of the priorities, really, some of the issues we should be looking at as against forcing Nigerians to cast their vote during elections. But let's look at the legality, really. Are there constitutional provisions on ground? You know, because certainly we have some hurdles to cross if this will eventually become a law. I'm not sure that it will augur well if this is just imposed without constitutional backing. Is there constitutional grounds existing for implementing a compulsory voting law in Nigeria?
There is no such law. Voting is a right. It is a right. If you look at a combined effect of sections 39 and 40 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, these sections deals with fundamental rights. Section 39 has to do with freedom of expression. Section 40 has to do with freedom of association. Voting is a form of expression. It is a right. So I can decide to exercise my right or not, but you cannot breach my right. I want us to get this distinction. I have a right. I have to have the freedom to choose whether to exercise my right or not. But you cannot breach my right. So, for example, I have a right to move around. And I can decide, okay, for 1 week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, I want to remain indoors. I shouldn't be punished for failing to leave my house, because it is a right I have decided not to exercise. It is also my right to participate in political activities and all the rest of them as enshrined under Section 40. But we have a particular religious organization that do not believe in politics. They don't follow up, especially the Jehovah's Witnesses. You cannot punish them for failing to exercise their rights. It is not an obligation. Section 77 that I cited earlier, subsection 2, allows you to go and register to participate in elections. It is a right. I can choose not to exercise that right. And nobody can punish me for that. And so I can tell you for free that if eventually this bill, of course, it is being sponsored by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, if this bill comes into effect and becomes a law, an act of the National Assembly, many lawyers will challenge it, because that bill is contrary to Section 1, subsection 3 of the Constitution. You cannot force people to exercise their rights. You cannot. What is this about voting and democracy?
Barrister
There are a lot of
Hanson,
societies.
I think it's pertinent to also look at the basis on which the Speaker House of Representatives is actually sponsoring this bill. What are his points, really? True, it negates human rights and all, but he must be citing some reasons for it to even make it to a point of discussion.
That there is low voter party, low turnout of voters, and things like that. Is that the reason why people are not voting? And I had someone cite example of Australia, and I just laugh. Australia is the first world country Australia is a first world country. How do you compare Nigeria to Australia? See, like I said, why do people not vote? That is the question. How do I waste my time, my resources? A lot of persons travel from all UK, US, Canada, different parts of the world to come back to vote in 2023. They spent thousands of US dollars and pounds to return home to vote. And at the end of the day, their vote did not count. And you want to punish me for failing to vote? The issue should be, why are people not voting? Listen, what is it about democracy that everybody is killing themselves? There are societies that are doing very well, although I'm an advocate of democratic society. But some societies are doing very well, but they're not practicing democracy. Take United Arab Emirates, for example. Is it a democratic society? But today, almost all of them in the National Assembly, they visit Dubai. They visit Dubai. Look at China. China is about 11 years older than Nigeria. They got their independence in 1949. We got ours in 1960. Can you compare yourself to China? During the COVID pandemic, China built over 1,500 capacity hospitals in 3 days. They built a lot of those hospitals within 10 days. Today, almost all the products you import is China. China is supplying to US, they are supplying to UK, they are supplying to so many societies, cannot name them, including Nigeria. Is China practicing democracy? So what is it that is so special about democracy? People come together, steal people's votes. As we speak right now, someone is in jail for rigging election for the Senate president. Whereas the Senate president is there occupying the seat. What has happened to him? That is the society you find ourselves, a society of gross inequality. So when you see a speaker of House of Reps proposing this kind of bill, it shows you how less busy these people are. It shows you how these people are not in touch with realities. They do not understand the yearnings of Nigerians. They do not feel what Nigeria feels. How do you sit and begin to propose this kind of bill when people are hungry? People cannot go to farm. They are being killed and murdered by herdsmen. There are a lot of security challenges. There are economic challenges. You are not making laws to tackle things like this. You are talking about voting. How is that a problem for Nigeria? Is that not a gross misplacement of priority? Is it not? So like I said earlier, I am one of those who will be fined 100,000 naira or going to prison for failing to vote. Because I will not vote if they make that a law. I will disobey the law. Civil disobedience is a form of protest. So many persons will disobey that law if
Mr.
eventually
Handsome,
they pass it.
Mr. Handsome, what constitutional grounds really exist for the implementation of compulsory voting into law?
I've said earlier, it has no constitutional backing. I've said earlier, I've cited 3 sections of the Constitution. It has no constitutional backing. What Constitution provides is that we have a right to vote. Once you're 18 and you've registered in line with section 77 subsection 2 of the Constitution, you are entitled to vote. It is a right. I have also said here that voting is a form of expression pursuant to section 39 of the Constitution. It is also a way of associating with a particular candidate pursuant to section 40 of the Constitution. All of these are rights, and nobody can be punished for failing to exercise their rights. But someone can be punished if those rights are breached. So take, for example, I want to vote, and someone is preventing me from voting, which is a right I have under section 39, section 40, and section 77, subsection 1. That person can be punished for breaching my fundamental rights. But you cannot punish me, Handsome, Kinikanwo, for failing to vote. You cannot. There is no constitutional backing. I've said that over and over again. So this law will definitely be challenged. If this bill, if it becomes law, will definitely be challenged by lawyers and civil society organizations. It will be challenged. That is the least of our problems in Nigeria.
if things do not change in the areas you're expecting them to change, that there's a probability you may be disobedient to the law, and that civil disobedience is a form of protest. You are one person, there are others who may have share the same opinion, view with you. So, but if this is eventually enacted into a law, what measures should we anticipate in trying to enforce that, you know, to whip people into line to ensure that they obey it? What should we anticipate? What do you think will make part of the law of making it compulsory for Nigerians to vote?
I think all of the mechanism for enforcing the law will be contained in the bill. I've not read the bill in its entirety, so I do not know what the enforcement mechanism would be. But I'm just wondering, we are over 200 million Nigerians. How many security men do you have? A lot of over 50% of them, or even 70% of them, are there securing the VIPs. How many is left for Nigerians? So how many Nigerians will you flog, for example? How many of them will you kick out of their house? How do you even enforce such a law? That's what I'm saying. This is a misplacement of priority. In fact, I listened to my former NBA president, Olisa Bakuba, saying he is one of those that is expressing the kind of view I'm expressing. Many of us are willing to end in prisons. How do you even enforce such a law? When you make a law that is unenforceable, it's a waste of precious legislative time. It's a waste of taxpayers' money, because as they are sitting there, they are being paid their sitting allowances. It's a waste of precious legislative time that you have utilized to make laws for good governance of Nigeria, make laws to improve the lives of Nigeria. We are busy making this kind of law, proposing this kind of bill. Imagine the number of hours the speaker must have spent preparing this kind of bill and presenting it at the legislative house. Imagine how much time he wasted. And all of this is on taxpayers' money. So I don't even know how they want to enforce this kind of law if it eventually becomes law. How do they enforce it? It's a question that I don't know. Maybe you've seen the bill.
Barrister Hanson, potential resistance is one challenge to this bill if it becomes a law. But are we also foreseeing other challenges? For one, there could be disenfranchisement for whatever reason. There are Nigerians who are living in remote areas and may have limited access to polling booths. We also have marginalized populations, that's in terms of numbers. Will this change the total voting system, voting outcome in Nigeria?
You see, I can tell you for free, if there is one thing politicians do not fail to do, it is to ensure that the ballot paper and ballot boxes get to the remote parts of Nigeria. They cross the ocean, they cross the sea to ensure that voting materials get to polling units. They do that a lot. So that has never been a problem. The getting to remote areas and villages, it has never been a problem. What really happens is that most times, on their way to deliver these materials, they are being hijacked by political thugs on their way to the various polling units or maybe rack center, as the case may be. But every polling unit in Nigeria, their materials, electoral materials, are usually provided for. So that has never been a challenge. The question is, I think in the last election, about the people came out, about 22% or so of registered voters came out to vote. So you can imagine over 78% not voting. How many judges do you have? How many magistrates do you have? Is that the only matters we have in court? Can you imagine the number of persons that will be prosecuted? Let us assume that this is actually a law based on the last election. Can you imagine how many persons will be prosecuted in court? How many courts do you think can contain all of this? And remember, this is an electoral offense, so most likely, and it's going to be an act of the National Assembly. So most likely, it is the Federal High Court that will have jurisdiction to deal with issues such as this. How many federal high courts do you have in each state of Nigeria? What is the percentage? What is the number of persons that could be prosecuted in this court? Are these the only matters in court? I can tell you for free that the enforcement of this law is going to be a very serious problem. It's going to be a serious challenge that the lawmakers themselves may not have anticipated. They didn't put it into consideration.
What ways might compulsory voting also alter the political landscape and also the behavior of political parties? Also, how can it be, unintended consequences?
Okay, I take that to mean that you are asking whether it will improve the relationship between the politicians and the electorate. I take that to be your question.
Yes,
If that is
yes.
correct, if that is correct, it will do nothing. Absolutely nothing. See, we're in a society where results are written before days or weeks before elections are conducted. That's the kind of society we find ourselves. So you go to a lot of polling units, the presiding officers, the electoral officers do not have result sheets. In 2015, I was a presiding officer. Then I was a serving youth corps member. I did not see result sheets on the presidential election, the first election. I did not see result sheets. And all the presiding officers in the local government where I served did not see result sheets. So how do you enter the results at the end of the elections? This is what happens across Nigeria. It will change nothing. What we should be talking about is strengthening our institutions. See, why can't I vote from my office? Why can't I just use my phone and vote? Why must I queue somewhere to vote? If you really want the electoral system to work, why don't you come up with a system that will ensure confidence so that if I vote from my office, and of course it shouldn't be a one-day thing. All of us followed the November election in the United States of America that happened last year. It's not a one-day thing. A country as small as Ghana has a very wonderful electoral system. The sitting president lost his re-election bid. The sitting president of Ghana, he lost his re-election bid. This is the second tenure. He had served in the first tenure, but he was not re-elected because they had a system that was working before he came back and now won his election. So why can't I just sit here, dial a particular code, like all of us have BVN, all of us have ATM cards. Why can't we just vote like we have our NIN? So once you've used it, you've used it. I don't need to go queue somewhere where my life will be under threat because I want to vote for someone who does not even know I exist. Is this not a clear example that the legislators, our politicians, do not even know that we exist? This kind of bill is not a clear example that they do not know, they do not feel our pains. They're not talking about industrializing Nigeria. They're not talking about building more refineries to make it functional so that we can reduce the cost of PMS and then crash down on other goods. They're not interested in things like this, but they want to make people vote compulsorily. So, like I said, it will change nothing. Provided the institutions are very weak, we keep having strong men, they will keep manipulating the system. So many persons loot this country. Like you have a country where about 2% of the population, they are richer than 98% of the population. So they get away with almost and everything. Someone sits somewhere without working at any place, without any business, but he has houses here and there across the world. Allegedly, how many estates have we seen that is traceable to the CBN governor who is under trial? Former CBN governor. You can see one person, only a whole lot of properties in Nigeria, whereas Nigerians, in fact, as I'm leaving my office going home, I will see people sleeping on the road It is like that everywhere. Go to Lagos, go to Abuja, go to Port Harcourt, go to every. You see people sleeping on the road. They are homeless. Whereas we have people who own a lot of properties within and outside Nigeria. These are the kind of issues that should bother these people.
Mr. Handsome, what of public perception? How has the public reacted to this particular compulsory voting law that has passed the second reading?
Of course, I'm a member of the public, and this is my view. I read my MBA president, Maazia Famusigwe. He's expressing the same view I'm expressing. He's not happy. I've told you about our past MBA president, Olusabakoba SN. He's not happy. I've read newspaper, I've looked at the pages of social media, televisions. People are not happy about this kind of bill. It just shows you how, with due respect to them, how unserious our National Assembly members are. It shows you how unserious they are. The public, nobody is happy. Civil society organization, people are kicking against it. How do you make this kind of law? When it's just like someone is sick, rather than going to maybe have malaria parasite and things like that, rather than going to the hospital so that they will give you proper malaria drugs, possibly typhoid drugs and other routine drugs, you buy paracetamol because you have headache and fever. How does that take care of the malaria in your system? The next time the malaria will come, it will definitely hit you down. That is why many Nigerians are still dying of malaria. Because they have this symptom. Rather than taking care of it, they probably take paracetamol and other drugs. They feel better and they move ahead. So Nigerians are still dying of malaria. So that is exactly what these people are doing. How does making compulsory voting put food on my table? How does it ensure that roads are working? How does it ensure that there is power supply? As I'm talking to you, I'm in the office, there is no light. So many homes are like that. In fact, there are so many homes in Nigeria that have never seen electric wire in their lifetime. These are the issues at this age and time. So how does making people, you must vote, how does it take care of all of this? How does it curb corruption that has eaten deeply into Nigeria? How does it? People sit for scholarship exams, they don't get it. People apply for jobs, they don't get it. Because they do not know one senator or one commissioner or one president or one minister. How does this kind of bill solve all of this problem? This is the list of the problems of Nigerians, and the National Assembly members should channel their effort towards the problem of Nigerians. That's the point we're making.
Reactions. How is the international community reacting to this particular bill?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how they are reacting, but I know that Nigerians outside of here, they are not. In fact, they are laughing at us. Before I came on stage online, I was talking with my friend in the UK, and he was like, "You are not serious. You don't even know what your problems are." So you can see how funny that is. Nigerians outside of the shores of this country, of course, they are laughing at us. And they are further telling us that, listen, you people are not ready. In fact, one of my friends in Australia told me that we are still sleeping in Nigeria and in a very deep dream. We are still sleeping. You know, when you wake up, that's when you begin to know where your challenges are. But when you're sleeping, you have no problem. You are good. You are fine. So that is exactly what is happening. That's the kind of reaction that I've gotten from some of my friends that I spoke to. But for the international community, I wouldn't be in a position to speak for them.
Faced with significant opposition, how should lawmakers balance the need to, do something to increase voter turnout with the need for public support and public legitimacy, because it is the people that determine who should represent them at various categories. I know that you've been huge on addressing the issues, so come up with those issues that should actually be addressed to sway Nigerians to actually vote without compelling them.
Okay, I for one, in the last election, I voted in the last election because I got some level of assurances, and I believed INEC when they said we are going to transmit results electronically. Otherwise, 2019 election, I did not vote. I voted in 2011 and 2015. 2015, I was an electoral umpire. I think that was just it. So I came out in 2023 to vote because I believed that the process was going to work. See, once Nigerians know that the process is going to work, automatically they will come out to vote. They will come out to vote. You don't need to force anybody. You don't need to coerce anybody to come out and vote. Once we are sure that if I vote, my vote will count, people will come out to vote. People will definitely come out to vote. So first, ensure that INEC is truly independent. We have seen the removal and the replacement of the new INEC. In fact, from what is happening, this is 2025. The election is 2027. We can see that all the attention is already geared towards 2027. You can see how they are laying the foundation. Those of us who have the inclination, we already know that these people are already planning for 2027 elections. This is 2025 and we are still in May. The conversation is all over there. Let there be confidence in the institution. Let us have a very clean and clear electoral process. People will vote. Let there be stiff punishment for beneficiaries of electoral offenses. So, for example, while the man who rigged the election for Godswill Akpabio is cooling his heels in the prison, Godswill Akpabio, with due respect to him, should also be there cooling his heels. So those who benefit from the rigging system, from the rigged system, should also suffer. You shouldn't be somewhere enjoying yourself and those who rigged the election for you is somewhere suffering. So the beneficiary and the offenders should make to suffer. There should be special courts for prosecution of electoral offenses. Listen, I do tell people that one of the highest form of crime you commit against a people is stealing their votes. Do you know what that does? It brings people that are incompetent into positions of authority. These people that are incompetent make policies that will affect the generality of the country. And so if someone steals goats in community X, you cannot compare the gravity of the consequences of that offense to someone who has stolen the vote of a people. You cannot. This is the reason why many of them don't even attend sittings. They don't propose any bill. They know nothing about legislative business. So they're just there to take the money, travel here and there, squander money, and that is it. Because when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse becomes inevitable. But when you have people truly elected by the people, you will go there and represent the people. And of course, you will realize that power lies with the people. That without the people, we cannot come back. But politicians take us for a ride because they know that they can easily write results and get their way to power. So let the institutions work. Let there be prosecutions, special courts to prosecute electoral offenders and beneficiaries. Let there be smooth, clean, clear electoral process like the one I've talked about. I should be able to vote from my home. Electronically, I should be able to vote. Today, we make bank transfers from our bed, from the comfort of our homes. We recharge airtime from our beds, from our offices, from the comfort of our homes. So why can't we vote like that? Why must we go queue somewhere and endanger people's life? Look at what happened in Lagos. A lady almost lost her eyes. In many states, it was like that. It wasn't different. So why should people die because they want to elect people into position of offices? Why? These are the issues that should concern us.
Thank you very much, Barrister Handsome Kinikanwo, for your contribution this evening on the subject matter, the legality of compulsory voting bill. The level of voter apathy in Nigeria could probably be the reason that the House of Representatives Speaker is sponsoring this bill, which has transcended second reading and on the floor of Federal House of Representatives. And the discussion is ongoing. It's generated outrage to the point that resistance is expected. This may not solve the problem of voter apathy, as has been established by our guest this evening, Handsome Kinikanwo. Something else could be done, but we keep our fingers crossed until it becomes a law, if it would get to that point. On that note, we conclude this segment, taking a break to return later for the third discussion segment. Stay with us still.
Signature TV. News in your pocket.